Neo and Daisy were enjoying their own happy time together at a coffee shop. The two of them laughed, chatted carefree, and talked about the future ahead. Suddenly, Neo looked into the distance toward the airport entrance and saw a familiar man. It was Kingsley, his father. He was hugging another woman who was not Neo's mother. Neo was so shocked that he dropped the coffee cup in his hand. His face instantly turned pale. Daisy became worried because she had no idea what was happening. She asked Neo what was wrong, but he didn't answer. Following Neo's stunned gaze, Daisy looked toward the same place. And to her shock, she reacted exactly the same way Neo did when she saw her mother embracing and kissing a man she had never seen before. Neo could not hesitate any longer. He ran over and grabbed his father's arm tightly. "Dad, what the hell are you doing here? Do you know what you're doing? Who is this woman?" Kingsley and Melina were frightened and flustered. Neither of them knew how to explain themselves in that situation. The atmosphere became even more tense when Daisy ran over, grabbed Neo's hand, and looked at her mother with tears filling her eyes. "Mom, why? Why would you do this?" The moment Melina saw her daughter holding that young man's hand, she immediately understood what was happening. Even in her wildest dreams, Melina could never have believed this relationship would be so complicated. Who could have imagined that her daughter's boyfriend would turn out to be the son of her lover? Melina's mind spun. Was this God's arrangement to punish her for this terrible sin? Melina looked out at the bright afternoon sun and thought about how hard her husband worked every day. Lunch was already prepared. All she had to do now was wait for him to come home so they could eat together. These days, lunch was usually just the two of them. Both of their children were away at college, so the house often felt much quieter than it once had. Whenever she waited for Owen to come home, she liked to take out the family photo album. As she flipped through the pages, a smile would appear on her face as memories of happier days came rushing back. She heard Owen's truck pull into the driveway. Melina's face lit up immediately. She closed the album, put it back in its place, and hurried downstairs to greet her husband. "You're home. Whew, it's blazing hot out there today. Come inside and get changed. I've already made some fresh orange juice and left it in the fridge for you." "Thanks, sweetheart. Let me change first." Melina quickly took his work bag and hung up his jacket. She and Owen had married young. Their love story began in high school. When Melina was a sophomore, Owen was a senior. He had fallen for her sweet smile and gentle nature the moment he noticed her. It took a lot of effort before he finally won her heart, and together they built a beautiful young romance. After graduation, Owen attended an HVAC trade school and later found work servicing commercial refrigeration systems. Once he finished his training, his father helped him secure a job at a cold storage facility near their hometown through a longtime connection. Their relationship continued to grow stronger. Shortly after Melina graduated from high school, she found out she was pregnant. While she was frightened and uncertain about the future, Owen was overjoyed. As soon as his parents heard the news, they went to speak with Melina's family about the two of them. Her parents were upset that their daughter had gotten pregnant before pursuing further education, but what was done was done. In the end, both families gave their blessing, and a wedding was held. Melina's parents worried constantly. Their daughter was still so young and was already becoming a wife and mother. But Melina was completely wrapped up in love. Owen always treated her with care and affection. His family was financially comfortable, and her married life turned out to be far smoother than anyone had expected. Their first child was a daughter named Daisy. The entire family celebrated her arrival. Barbara took over nearly every household responsibility herself, leaving Melina with little to do except rest, eat well, and care for the baby. Whenever Daisy cried during the night, either Owen or Barbara would get up to comfort her. When Daisy turned 2, Melina gave birth to a son named Blaine. As the children grew older and started preschool, Melina began feeling restless, staying home all day. Owen encouraged her to learn sewing. She turned out to be naturally talented, and her skills improved quickly. His parents helped her open a small alteration shop near the house along a busy road. Her workmanship was excellent, and business steadily grew. More and more customers came to her for alterations and custom sewing. The extra income helped strengthen the family's finances, and life became increasingly stable. Later, Owen's parents helped the young couple purchase a comfortable home right next door to theirs. Owen adored his wife and children. After work, he always hurried home to spend time with them. He helped around the house, assisted the children with homework, and made sure Melina had time to rest. Everyone in the neighborhood admired their family. Many women even pointed to them as the perfect example of a happy marriage. Whenever Melina sat in her shop working on customers' clothes and overheard those compliments, she could never hide her happiness. Their marriage was fulfilling in every way. Owen was a tall, broad-shouldered man who always made her feel safe and protected. More than once, Melina found herself thinking how fortunate she was to have married such a good man. Owen changed his clothes, washed up, and took a seat at the dining table. As Melina served lunch, she asked about his day at work. The two of them ate together while chatting comfortably about everything that had happened that morning. The conversation eventually turned to their children, and Melina let out a quiet sigh as she set down her fork. "I miss the kids so much," Owen nodded. "Me too. I'll try to arrange my schedule by the end of the month. Once things settle down, we'll go visit them." Melina's eyes brightened. "Really? Of course. They've been so busy with school that they hardly come home anymore. You're at work all day, and I'm here by myself. I miss them all the time. I keep wondering whether they're eating properly or if they're living on takeout and junk food." Owen smiled. "They're grown up now. They know how to take care of themselves. Besides, you need to take care of yourself too. If you wear yourself out worrying, you'll only make yourself sick." "I know." Melina picked up a piece of fish and placed it in his bowl. "Here, have some more. Is everything okay? Does the food taste good?" Owen took a bite and grinned. "Everything you cook tastes good." Melina shot him a playful look. "You're just saying that." "No, I'm serious." She smiled and continued placing the best pieces of food onto his plate. After lunch, Owen helped her clear the table and wash the dishes. Once everything was cleaned up, he went to lie down and rest for a while before getting ready to return to work for the afternoon shift. Life continued peacefully for the two of them. With both children grown and away at college, Melina and Owen often joked that they were newlyweds all over again. Every evening after her shower, Melina would sit at her vanity and go through her skincare routine. As she gently applied moisturizer to her face and neck, she would chat with her husband about the events of the day. Owen would lean against the headboard, watching the evening news while listening to her stories and sharing his own. He had always been that way, attentive and affectionate. Perhaps that was why, even in her mid-40s, Melina still looked remarkably young and beautiful. She possessed a mature kind of beauty, with smooth skin, rosy cheeks, and a fit figure. Years of avoiding heavy labor had left her hands slender and elegant. As she looked into the mirror, she noticed Owen staring at her from behind. A smile touched her lips. Turning toward him, she teased, "What are you looking at? Have you been completely mesmerized by my beauty?" Owen chuckled. "Can you blame me? Listen to you. Acting like a teenager after all these years. People would laugh if they heard you." Melina stood up and walked over to the bed. Owen immediately wrapped his arms around her. Even after more than 20 years of marriage, the love between them remained as strong as ever. Now that their children were older and no longer depended on them every moment of the day, they had more time to focus on each other. Melina rested her head against his chest, breathing in the familiar scent that had comforted her for decades. Owen reached over and switched off the bedside lamp. Then he gently kissed her. Melina closed her eyes and gave herself over to the warmth and tenderness he offered. They held each other close, sharing the intimacy that had always been a natural part of their marriage. Their peaceful and happy life continued on just as it always had. One afternoon, Melina had just closed up her alteration shop and was about to head inside to start preparing dinner, just as she did every day, when a pickup truck pulled up hard in front of her shop. She looked up and immediately recognized Mr. Alex from the neighborhood. Before she could even greet him, he rushed toward her, completely out of breath. Melina, hurry! Something happened!" Her heart skipped a beat. "What happened? What's wrong? Hurry and get your father-in-law. Owen was in an accident at the intersection up ahead." The words hit her like a bolt of lightning. The bag in her hand slipped to the ground. She stared at him in disbelief, unable to process what she had just heard. "What? Are you sure? Did you get the wrong person? Are you certain it's my husband?" She grabbed his arm and shook it desperately. "No mistake. It's Owen. He's hurt badly. There's blood everywhere." No. The color drained from her face. Her legs gave way, and she dropped to the ground. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. Mr. Alex kept urging her to move. Finally, snapping out of her shock, Melina turned and ran toward her in-laws' house. Tears streamed from her eyes as she shouted, "Mom! Dad! Mom! Dad!" Barbara rushed outside. "What happened? Dad, please get the car! Hurry! Owen's been in an accident!" Within moments, neighbors began gathering outside, asking questions, but Melina couldn't hear any of them. Her mind was consumed by a single thought: Owen. Barbara stood frozen in shock while Owen's father hurried to get the car. The family rushed toward the intersection. As they approached, Melina could see a crowd gathered around the scene. She silently prayed that the injured man lying on the road wasn't her husband. Police officers had already arrived and were securing the area. Melina pushed through the crowd. The moment she saw Owen lying on the pavement, her world shattered. Both of his legs had been crushed beneath a vehicle. Blood covered the ground around him. She collapsed beside him and wrapped her arms around him, crying uncontrollably. She tried to speak to him, tried to ask if he could hear her, but Owen only managed to look at her before another wave of agony washed over him. His face twisted with pain as he groaned. A few minutes later, the ambulance arrived. Paramedics performed emergency treatment before loading him inside. Melina climbed into the ambulance and sat beside him, holding his shaking body in her arms. The injuries were devastating. The pain became too much for Owen to bear, and he lost consciousness on the way to the hospital. As soon as they arrived, doctors rushed him directly into emergency surgery. For 8 long hours, Melina waited outside the operating room. Time seemed to crawl by. Her hands remained tightly clasped together as she paced back and forth along the hallway, whispering prayers over and over, begging God to spare her husband. Night gradually settled over the hospital. The once busy corridor grew quiet, with only a handful of family members still waiting outside other patient rooms. Melina stared through the window at the dark sky. There were no stars that night, only the glow of streetlights reflecting against the darkness and making everything feel even more bleak. She counted every minute, hoping the surgery would be successful. Before Owen had been taken into the operating room, the doctors had briefly explained the severity of his injuries. Melina's hands shook as she signed the consent forms placed in front of her. The moment she put her name on those papers, she felt as though her heart had stopped beating. Never in her life had she been this afraid. Barbara and her husband had cried until they had no tears left. They stood staring at the operating room doors, consumed by grief and worry. Seeing them in such pain made Melina cry even harder. "Mom, I'm so worried about Owen." Barbara wiped her eyes. "We're worried too. It feels like our hearts are being torn apart. Dear God, please protect my son. Please let him survive this." Together, Melina and Barbara closed their eyes and prayed for a miracle. Hour after hour passed. Melina sat curled up in a chair in the hallway. When she looked up at the clock, it was already 3:30 in the morning. At last, the operating room doors opened. Melina and her in-laws rushed forward and grabbed the doctor's arm. "Doctor, how is he? Is he okay?" The doctor let out a long breath. "He's out of danger. We managed to save his life, but we couldn't save his legs. We did everything we could, but we had no choice but to amputate both of them." No, that's impossible." Melina collapsed to the floor. She covered her mouth with both hands, desperately trying to hold back her sobs, but tears poured down her face. She turned toward Barbara, only to see her mother-in-law lose consciousness and fall. Mom! Owen's father panicked. "Somebody help!" 2 nurses rushed over and quickly assisted Barbara before taking her to another room. The shock was simply too much for her. Melina felt as though her entire body had gone numb. Her mind was completely blank. She sat there like a lost soul, crying soundlessly as her husband's hospital bed was wheeled into the intensive care unit. The family still wasn't allowed to see him. Alone in the hallway, Melina was overwhelmed by fear and uncertainty. She had no idea what the future would look like now. A day later, Owen finally regained consciousness. When he learned that both of his legs had been amputated, he suffered another devastating blow. He reached down toward the blankets and felt the empty space where his legs should have been. The realization shattered him. He broke down completely. Melina wrapped her arms around him and tried to comfort him, but seeing him in such pain left her unable to find any words. All she could do was cry with him. Once Owen's condition stabilized, Melina finally gathered herself enough to call their children. As soon as Daisy and Blaine heard what had happened to their father, they rushed home from college. The 3 of them stood together in the hospital hallway, holding one another and crying. Melina's heart ached for her husband. At the same time, she couldn't help questioning why fate had been so cruel. How was Owen supposed to face the rest of his life after losing both legs? Soon afterward, representatives from Owen's company came to visit him in the hospital. Given his condition, the company promised financial assistance and worked to speed up his insurance claim. Everyone who visited offered words of encouragement and wished him a speedy recovery. Yet every person who looked at him understood the painful truth. From now on, Owen's life would likely be tied to a wheelchair. After spending 2 months in the hospital, Owen was finally discharged and brought home. He spent most of his time lying in bed, staring silently out the window. His eyes carried a sadness that never seemed to fade. The physical pain, combined with the humiliation and insecurity he felt, gradually turned him into a different person. He spoke less and less each day. Melina devoted herself to taking care of him, but the distance growing between them left her feeling hurt and helpless. During the first few months, she did her best to tolerate his mood swings and sharp temper. Whenever she brought him water or helped him with his daily needs, he often pushed her away. "Leave it. Go outside. I don't need your help. Let me help you change your clothes. They're dirty. Just leave me alone. I can do it myself. I'm not completely helpless." Melina said nothing and picked up a towel to wipe his face. Before she could reach him, Owen knocked it from her hand. The towel fell onto the floor. "I told you I can do it myself! Why won't you listen?" Melina finally lost her patience. "What's wrong with you?" Owen laughed bitterly. "What's wrong with me? Look at me. What do you think is wrong? You're being unreasonable. I know you're hurting. I know you're exhausted. But I'm exhausted too. Have you ever stopped to think about how I feel? Then leave me if you're so tired of it. Go ahead. Leave. I'm crippled, ugly, and useless now. You probably look down on me too, don't you?" "Owen!" Melina's face turned red with anger and hurt. Without another word, she turned around and walked out of the room. The moment she stepped outside, she saw Barbara standing nearby. Her mother-in-law looked worried and tired. Tears filled Melina's eyes. "Mom, why does he keep treating me like this? He's hurting, but I'm hurting too. I've done everything I can." Barbara gently held her hand. "I know, sweetheart. I understand. But please don't blame him. Go eat something. Let me take care of him for a while." Barbara walked into the room and looked at her son. The sight of him sitting there broke her heart. She wrapped her arms around him and cried, "Son, what's happened can't be changed. Since God has put this burden in front of you, the only thing left is to face it. I just want to rest, Mom. Don't be like this. Your wife is suffering too. Since the accident, she's been running everywhere trying to take care of everything. If you won't think about your father and me, at least think about your wife." As she spoke, Barbara picked up the towel from the floor, soaked another one in warm water, and gently wiped her son's face. Owen remained silent. Once his anger faded, guilt always followed. But every time he thought about his missing legs, the frustration returned. Accepting that he had suddenly become disabled was far more difficult than anyone around him realized. Whenever he looked at his wife, insecurity consumed him. To hide that insecurity, he put on a cold and irritable front. He didn't want to become a burden. He didn't want Melina to pity him. Deep inside, Owen felt ashamed of what he had become. He was terrified that one day his wife would grow tired of him, look down on him, or stop loving him because of his disability. On top of that, he could no longer work. The rest of his life would likely be spent in a wheelchair. Those thoughts cut through him again and again. His chest tightened. Tears gathered in his eyes, but he pressed his lips together and refused to let himself cry. The emotional pain, combined with the physical suffering, slowly ate away at him. Day by day, he withdrew further into himself. He stopped wanting to talk. He stopped wanting to see people. Little by little, Owen began shutting himself off from the world around him. 7 months after leaving the hospital, Owen's health had become much more stable. The injuries to his legs no longer caused constant pain, though changes in the weather still left him aching from time to time. Living with a husband who was physically disabled and whose temper had become increasingly unpredictable left Melina feeling exhausted, frustrated, and trapped. The two of them no longer shared the warm conversations they once had. Owen constantly found ways to push her away and avoid being close to her. At night, lying beside her husband, Melina couldn't ignore her own desires. One evening, she wrapped her arms around him and gently caressed him, hoping to reconnect. Owen remained motionless. He lay there without responding, showing no concern for what she was feeling. When she tried to get closer, he became irritated. "Look at me. How am I supposed to do anything now?" Melina stared at him. "Do you think I'm not hurting too? Why are you talking to me like this? That's just the way I am now. You'd better get used to it. Why are you acting like this?" "You never treated me this way before." Owen gave a bitter laugh. "You're tired of me, aren't you? I know you are. Go find yourself a healthy man, someone who can actually give you what you need." "What did I do to deserve this? Why do you keep pushing me away? I know exactly what I am now. You're being unfair. Do you even realize how badly you're treating me?" Tears filled Melina's eyes. She climbed out of bed and stormed out of the room. That night, she went to sleep in Daisy's old bedroom. Gradually, she grew tired of living with a husband who was both difficult and constantly angry. From that point on, she stopped sleeping beside him. She told everyone she was having trouble sleeping and preferred a different room. Curled up in bed with a pillow in her arms, memories of the passionate years she had shared with Owen came rushing back. The more she remembered, the harder it became to fall asleep. She missed being held in his strong arms. She missed the way he kissed her. She missed the intimacy they had once shared and the closeness that had made her feel loved and desired. Those memories stirred feelings she could no longer ignore. Her body grew warm as she lay there alone in the darkness. She pulled the blanket tighter around herself and tried to suppress the longing building inside her. Eventually, the feelings became too overwhelming. Melina abruptly got out of bed and hurried into the bathroom. She stood beneath the shower with her eyes closed, allowing the warm water to run over her body as she tried to calm herself. After some time, she finally regained her composure and returned to the bedroom. Standing in front of the mirror, she studied her reflection. She was still beautiful. At 45, she possessed the mature beauty of a woman in her prime. Her body remained healthy and full of life. She knew she still longed for love. She still wanted affection. She still wanted to feel desired by the man she loved. Yet for almost a year now, Owen had not touched her. Whenever she hinted at wanting intimacy, he pushed her away. Sometimes he even made sarcastic remarks that left her feeling humiliated and deeply hurt. Was this what the rest of her life was going to be? Was she destined to spend her remaining years alone despite having a husband? The thought of living like a nun for the rest of her life was something she simply could not accept. Melina was no longer as patient with her husband as she had been before. Little by little, she stopped trying so hard. Other than making sure Owen had his meals, took his medication, and received the basic care he needed, she focused on her own responsibilities and kept herself busy. The house, which had already felt quiet after the children left for college, now seemed even emptier. Husband and wife lived under the same roof, yet each was trapped in a different world. Owen remained consumed by the shame and insecurity brought on by his disability, while Melina gradually withdrew into a world of her own. The long conversations they once shared disappeared. In their place were brief exchanges that felt more like polite obligations than genuine communication. Only when Daisy and Blaine came home to visit did laughter return to the house. As time passed, Melina spent more and more hours at her alteration shop. There was simply too much financial pressure resting on her shoulders. She needed money for Owen's medications and medical expenses, and she still had to help support Blaine through college. Most of the day-to-day care for Owen was gradually taken over by Barbara. Knowing how much her daughter-in-law was sacrificing for the family, she did everything she could to help. She never complained. Whenever she had the chance, she stepped in and eased some of Melina's burden. Owen's parents also carefully stretched their retirement income to help pay for Blaine's education. They lived modestly and saved every dollar they could so their grandson would be able to finish school without interruption. Despite all the hardship she was carrying, Melina was deeply touched by the kindness of her in-laws. No matter how difficult Owen had become, Barbara and her husband never stopped treating her like their own daughter. Their support, along with the love she received from Daisy and Blaine, gave her comfort during the darkest period of her life and helped her keep moving forward. One day, Melina drove into Houston to pick up fabric for several customer orders. As she was crossing a busy street, she wasn't paying close attention, and accidentally another vehicle sideswiped her SUV. The impact forced her SUV onto the shoulder, sending rolls of fabric scattering across the road. Melina winced in pain and let out a startled cry. The driver immediately jumped out of the car and hurried over to help her. Several people nearby stopped to see what had happened. A few kind strangers helped gather the fabric and move it out of the way. Once they saw that no one appeared seriously injured, they gradually went on their way, leaving only Melina and the driver behind. Fortunately, the collision had been minor. Aside from a scrape on her leg, she seemed fine. The man looked at her with concern. "I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" Melina frowned. "Why were you driving so close to me?" "A kid on a bicycle suddenly came out in front of me. I swerved to avoid him and got too close to your vehicle. I'm really sorry. Are you hurt?" Only then did Melina look up at him properly. Standing before her was a tall man with masculine features and warm brown skin. The irritation in her voice immediately softened. "I'm okay. My leg just hurts a little." "Wait here for a second. Let me move the vehicle so we're not blocking traffic. Why don't you stand on the sidewalk where it's safer?" As he spoke, he gently took her arm and helped her toward the curb. Melina limped beside him, leaning lightly against him for support. Being so close to this well-dressed, attractive man stirred something unexpected inside her. Her heart beat a little faster than usual. After helping her sit down, the man moved her vehicle into a nearby parking space before parking his car nearby. When he returned and noticed blood seeping through the scrape on her leg, he immediately became anxious. "Maybe I should take you to the hospital. That leg looks worse than you're letting on." Melina shook her head. "It's only a scrape. I'll be fine. Do you happen to have a first aid kit in your car? If I clean the wound, that'll be enough." "I don't think I do. Wait here. There's a pharmacy across the street. I'll be right back." The man quickly crossed the road and returned with antiseptic supplies. He then helped her over to a small cafe nearby so she could sit comfortably while cleaning the wound. Watching him awkwardly fumble with the supplies, Melina couldn't help smiling. "Here, let me do it." She took the cotton pads and antiseptic from his hands and carefully cleaned the scrape before wrapping it with a bandage. As she worked, the man kept glancing between her face and her hands. When Melina looked up, she caught him staring at her. Her cheeks warmed slightly. "There, all done. Thank you for helping me." He laughed softly. "I should be thanking you. This happened because of me." "It's okay. By the way, are you from the South?" Melina looked surprised. "How could you tell? You sound like you're from Georgia." He smiled and extended his hand. "I'm Kingsley. I'm from Atlanta. My company has a branch office here, so I travel to Houston for work quite often. I'm really sorry about what happened today. It's fine. I'm okay now." Kingsley studied her face for another moment. "You know, you look familiar. The second I got out of the car, I felt like I'd seen you before." Melina laughed lightly. "You know me? Did you grow up in Savannah?" Hearing him name her hometown, she widened her eyes in surprise. "Yes, I did." She looked at him more carefully. "Now that I think about it, you seem familiar too." Kingsley's eyes lit up. "Wait, are you Melina?" She stared at him. "Kingsley? You're Mrs. Carter's grandson, aren't you?" The moment he heard her say his name, a huge smile spread across his face. After so many years, he had finally found the girl he had quietly admired when he was young. Melina shook her head in disbelief. "I never imagined we'd run into each other like this." "Neither did I," Kingsley replied, still unable to take his eyes off her. Kingsley continued looking at Melina. She was still beautiful, just as she had been all those years ago. Seeing her again brought back a flood of memories he hadn't thought about in a very long time. Kingsley had grown up in Atlanta. His parents had met and fallen in love while working for the same company. Because his family lived so far away, he rarely visited his mother's hometown. During his final year of college, he had spent one summer there and happened to meet Melina. At the time, she was only a sophomore in high school. She was sweet, cheerful, and naturally beautiful. Kingsley was 5 years older than her, and he had been drawn to her from the moment they met. But she already had a boyfriend. Knowing that, he never found the courage to tell her how he felt. When summer ended, he returned to Atlanta. After graduating, he landed a good job with an international company and began building his career. About a year later, he got married. His wife was the daughter of one of the department managers at his company. So many years had passed since then, yet somehow life had brought him and Melina together again in the most unexpected way. Before they could talk much more, the sky had already begun to darken. Melina glanced at the time and grew worried. The drive back home was nearly 25 miles, and she still had a long way to go. She quickly said goodbye and prepared to leave. Kingsley offered to drive her home, but she politely declined. She didn't want people in her neighborhood talking or making assumptions. As Melina got back into her SUV, Kingsley hurriedly handed her one of his business cards. He stood there watching her leave, waving until she disappeared from sight. Once she was gone, he returned to his car and drove back to his hotel. Meeting the girl he had once secretly admired left his heart strangely restless. On the drive back, one thought kept repeating itself in his mind. He should have asked for her phone number. The more he thought about it, the more he regretted missing the chance. He wondered whether her injured leg was bothering her. He wondered whether she had made it home safely. Most of all, he wondered if she would call him. That night, Kingsley tossed and turned in bed. He picked up his phone, checked it, set it down, then picked it up again. Hours passed, but there were still no calls and no messages from Melina. Meanwhile, on the drive home, Melina couldn't explain why she felt so unusually cheerful. Since it was already dark outside, she drove slowly and carefully. By the time she arrived home, it was nearly 8:30 in the evening. The moment Barbara saw her limping into the yard, she hurried outside in concern. "Why are you home so late? And what happened to your leg?" Melina forced a small smile. "I had a minor accident on the road. I bumped into someone's car." Hearing that, Barbara immediately bent down and pulled up the leg of her pants to inspect the injury. Her face filled with concern. "Goodness, does it hurt badly?" "Not really. It's only a scrape. You need to be more careful next time." "I will, Mom." Barbara gently helped her into the house. Owen was sitting in his wheelchair when she walked in. He glanced at her injured leg and asked a few brief questions before falling silent again. The exchange lasted less than a minute. Even Barbara seemed uncomfortable watching it. She quickly changed the subject so Melina wouldn't dwell on it. Since losing his legs, showing concern for other people had become difficult for Owen. Most of his energy was consumed by his own pain and frustration. As far as he was concerned, Melina had only suffered a minor scrape. Compared to what had happened to him, it probably didn't seem important. Perhaps his bitterness toward life had slowly turned into indifference toward the people around him. Although Melina didn't say anything, Owen's reaction disappointed her. She had just been in a car accident, yet he barely seemed concerned. Why didn't he care anymore? When he was suffering, she had devoted herself entirely to taking care of him. Now, even a stranger seemed more worried about her than her own husband. The image of Kingsley resurfaced in her mind. She found herself comparing the two men without meaning to. Kingsley had been thoughtful, attentive, and considerate. Owen barely looked up from where he sat. The comparison left a bitter feeling in her chest. The more she thought about it, the more irritated and hurt she became. After taking a shower, Melina sat down at the dinner table. Seeing the meal Barbara had thoughtfully saved for her warmed her heart. Even so, she only managed to eat a small bowl before pushing her chair back and standing up. Favoring her injured leg, she slowly made her way toward Daisy's room. As she passed the master bedroom, she noticed Owen lying in bed scrolling through his phone. She didn't stop to speak to him. At that moment, she simply wasn't interested. Melina climbed onto the bed and lay staring at the ceiling with one arm resting across her forehead. Her thoughts drifted back to the unexpected encounter she had shared with Kingsley earlier that day. After a few minutes, she suddenly sat up and reached for her purse on the nightstand. Digging through it, she pulled out the business card Kingsley had given her. She sat there holding it for a long time. When she glanced at the clock, it was already 11 o'clock at night. For several minutes, she debated whether she should call him. Eventually, curiosity got the better of her. She entered his number and pressed the call button. The moment the phone started ringing, panic washed over her. What am I doing? Have I lost my mind? She quickly ended the call. Embarrassment flooded through her. She couldn't believe she had actually tried to call him. What if he thought she was ridiculous? Shaking her head at herself, she decided to delete his number from her call history. Just as she was about to do it, her phone suddenly lit up. Melina blinked and looked closer. It was Kingsley. Her heart skipped a beat. She stared at the screen, unsure whether she should answer. The phone kept ringing. Finally, she took a deep breath and accepted the call. A familiar voice came through the speaker. "Hello? Hello? Who's this? It's me. Melina?" His voice immediately brightened. "You called me. Why did you hang up so quickly?" It was nothing. I should go." Wait, please don't hang up. There was genuine urgency in his voice. Hearing her speak seemed to make him unexpectedly happy. Did you make it home safely? Yes. You have no idea how worried I was. I kept thinking about you. I wanted to call, but I didn't have your number. I've been kicking myself all evening for not asking for it. Melina was caught off guard. You were worried about me? Of course I was. Your leg was injured because of me. How could I not worry? A small smile appeared on her face. I'm really fine. We barely had a chance to talk this afternoon. How about we meet tomorrow and have coffee together? Tomorrow? Melina hesitated. I don't know. Please don't say no. I'll only be here for a few more days before my work trip ends and I have to fly back to Atlanta. Are we really going to meet again after all these years and then just disappear from each other's lives? His words were warm, sincere, and difficult to refuse. After a long pause, Melina quietly answered, Okay, great. I'll text you the address. For reasons she couldn't quite explain, she found herself agreeing to see him again. Early the next morning, Melina stopped by her in-laws' house. Mom? Barbara stepped out of the kitchen and looked at her. What is it, sweetheart? Melina hesitated. Yesterday's fall left my leg a little sore, so I thought I'd go to the hospital and get it checked out. Could you stay with Owen for me while I'm gone? Of course. You should get it checked just to be safe. Otherwise, you'll only worry yourself. Thank you, Mom. As she walked back home, Melina's heart felt uneasy. She couldn't stop wondering whether her mother-in-law had suspected anything. When she went inside to help Owen wash up and get dressed, she avoided looking directly into his eyes. I'm going to the hospital for a little while today. Mom's coming over to stay with you. Okay. Do you want me to pick up anything while I'm out? No. A sense of guilt slowly crept into Melina's mind. She knew what she was doing wasn't right, yet she couldn't explain why she felt so drawn to meeting Kingsley again. After entering her room, she carefully chose an outfit that was more flattering than what she normally wore. She applied a little makeup and finished with a touch of red lipstick. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she felt beautiful again. For the first time in a long while, she saw a spark in her own reflection. Just as she was about to leave, she heard Barbara entering the house. Panic washed over her. She quickly grabbed a lightweight jacket, put it on, and covered part of her face, afraid her mother-in-law might notice how much effort she had put into her appearance. When she stepped outside, Barbara was sweeping the yard. I'm heading out, Mom. Be careful on the road. Barbara's concern only made Melina feel worse. Her conscience urged her to turn around, go back inside, and forget about the whole thing. But another part of her pushed her forward. Without giving herself time to think, she got into her SUV and headed toward the cafe where Kingsley was waiting. The moment he saw her arrive, his face brightened. He immediately stood up to greet her. Was the drive difficult? Not at all. Kingsley pulled out a chair for her. The gesture was simple, but it carried a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. What would you like to drink? Orange juice is fine. Got it. He walked over to place the order. Melina watched him and smiled. When Kingsley returned, their eyes met for a moment. Both of them looked away almost immediately. A faint blush appeared on Melina's cheeks. Conversation flowed naturally between them. They reminisced about old memories and shared stories about their families and their lives. The more they talked, the easier it became. Hours slipped by without either of them noticing. Eventually, it was time to leave. Kingsley seemed reluctant to say goodbye. As they walked out of the cafe together, Melina missed a step while going down the entrance stairs. She lost her balance and nearly fell. Kingsley reacted instantly, reaching out and catching her before she hit the ground. His strong arms wrapped around her waist and pulled her against him. The sudden closeness sent her heart racing. For a brief moment, neither of them moved. Embarrassed, Melina quickly looked away from the intensity in his eyes and straightened herself. Thank you. After saying goodbye, she turned and headed home. After meeting Kingsley, Melina felt a new sense of excitement in her life. Over the next few weeks, they stayed in touch and slowly grew closer. The two of them began texting regularly, checking on each other throughout the day. Whenever a message from him appeared on her phone, a smile would unconsciously spread across her face. One thing became increasingly clear to her. Kingsley genuinely cared about her. He always replied quickly and never left her waiting for long. Gradually, Melina started paying more attention to her appearance. She took extra time getting ready each morning and became more conscious of how she looked. At the same time, she no longer reacted the way she used to when Owen snapped at her. His complaints and bad moods seemed to affect her less and less. In truth, she simply stopped caring. When night fell and the house grew quiet, the familiar emptiness returned. Lying alone on the large bed, Melina could feel the loneliness and longing she had been carrying for so long stirring inside her once again. She gently ran her hands over herself, trying to ease the restless feelings she couldn't seem to escape. Before long, her thoughts drifted to Kingsley. She remembered his broad shoulders and strong frame. She remembered the warmth of his skin when he had caught her in his arms. She remembered the way he looked at her, as though she were the only person in the world. The memories lingered in her mind. She found herself imagining what it would feel like to be held by him. If only she could wrap her arms around him right now. If only she could rest in his embrace. Those thoughts stayed with her as she slowly drifted off to sleep. Where am I? Melina looked around in confusion as she pushed open a door and stepped inside. Waiting for her was Kingsley's warm smile and gentle voice. I've been waiting for you. Waiting for me? Of course. Come here. Before she could react, Kingsley pulled her into his arms. He lowered his head and captured her lips in a passionate kiss. His hands wrapped around her waist and drew her closer against him. The moment she felt his touch, a powerful sensation rushed through her body. It was as if every nerve had suddenly come alive. Without thinking, she rose onto her toes and wrapped her arms around his neck, returning his kiss with equal intensity. All the desire she had buried for the past year surged to the surface at once. The longing, the loneliness, the need to feel loved and desired again overwhelmed her. She clung to him desperately, unwilling to let go. Melina wanted to love and be loved. She wanted someone to fill the emptiness she had been carrying inside for so long. She felt like a dry field abandoned for months, desperately waiting for rain. Closing her eyes, she surrendered herself to the warmth Kingsley offered. Her breathing grew uneven as she whispered near his ear, "Please, hurry." Just as Kingsley bent down and reached for her, a loud, piercing sound suddenly shattered everything around her. In an instant, the room disappeared. Melina's eyes flew open. She sat upright in bed, covered in sweat. For several seconds, she stared blankly into the darkness. Then she threw back the blanket as if searching for something that had vanished. Slowly, reality settled in. It had all been a dream. A wave of disappointment washed over her. She sat motionless, unable to move. The dream had felt so real that waking up left an emptiness she couldn't ignore. The shrill ringing continued beside her. It was the alarm clock. The sound echoed through the quiet house as if mocking her. With a frustrated sigh, she reached over and turned it off. Every morning at 4 o'clock, she set an alarm so she could help Owen get up to use the bathroom. She tied back her hair and walked into his room. After helping him, she returned to her own bed. Yet even then, she couldn't stop thinking about the dream. Curled beneath the covers, she replayed every moment in her mind. As embarrassing as it was, the dream forced her to confront a truth she had been trying to deny. She could no longer pretend those desires didn't exist. She wasn't a saint. She was simply a woman. Like any other woman, she had needs and longings of her own. Sometimes she wished her desires would disappear. Sometimes she wished she had already reached menopause so she wouldn't have to struggle like this. It felt unfair. She was at the height of her womanhood, yet she was living the life of someone who had sworn off intimacy entirely. If it hadn't been for the alarm clock, Melina couldn't help wondering how that dream might have ended. The thought left her feeling strangely empty. The frustration of having a husband but being unable to share any physical intimacy with him weighed heavily on her heart. If Owen had never been in that accident, she might still be living the happy life she once had. Over the past year, Melina had carried the weight of the entire family on her shoulders. The pressure never seemed to let up. There were times when she felt completely overwhelmed and wanted to give up. After all, she was only human. She was only a woman. Yet now she had to take on responsibilities that once belonged to both her and her husband. She worked tirelessly to cover Owen's medical expenses and household bills. Daisy had already graduated and was searching for a job, while Blaine was in his second year of college. Every responsibility seemed to land on her shoulders alone. Meanwhile, ever since losing his legs, Owen had withdrawn further into himself. He was no longer the loving and attentive husband she had once known. The pain he continued to endure, especially whenever the weather changed, left him constantly irritated and short-tempered. More often than not, he wore a frown whenever he looked at her. Even helping him with basic daily routines had become difficult. It often took all of Melina's patience and strength just to help him sit up or get comfortable. Despite everything she did for him, Owen rarely seemed grateful. The truth was that he hated feeling pitied. He hated depending on her. Many times he refused to eat, refused to take his medication, and insisted that she divorce him. Whenever that happened, Melina simply wiped away her tears and walked out of the room. Only after she left would Owen clutch his chest and break down alone. The emotional pain and physical suffering continued to consume him. He still couldn't accept what had happened to him. Every time he thought about his condition, the shock returned. Owen couldn't understand what his wife was going through, and Melina couldn't fully understand what it felt like to live in his situation either. They had become like two parallel lines moving in the same direction without ever meeting. The more Melina thought about it, the lonelier she felt. Just then, her phone screen lit up. Kingsley was calling. She quickly answered. "Hello? Did I wake you?" Kingsley's voice was soft. "No. Then that's good. Why are you awake so early?" "Because of you." Melina froze for a moment. "Because of me?" "Yeah, because I miss you." Her heart skipped a beat. Kingsley continued. "My business trip is over. I'm flying back to Atlanta tonight." "That soon?" "Yeah." His voice softened even more. "But before I leave, I really want to see you again." Melina didn't respond immediately. "How about we meet?" "Meet?" "Please say yes. These past few days, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. I miss you like crazy. And I know you've noticed how I feel about you. Please don't turn me down. Before I leave, I just want a chance to spend some time with you." His words were gentle, sincere, and impossible for her to ignore. In the end, Melina found herself nodding, even though he couldn't see her. Okay. Early the next morning, Melina once again used the excuse that she needed to drive into Houston to pick up fabric. She asked Barbara to stay with Owen while she was gone. After leaving home, she quickly drove to the location where she and Kingsley had agreed to meet. The moment she arrived, she immediately recognized his car. Melina picked up her phone and called him. "I'm here. I see you." Kingsley's voice sounded warm. "Stay where you are. I'll come over." "No." Melina quickly stopped him. "Don't come over yet. Let me park my car first." "What's wrong?" "I'll explain later. Just wait for me." "All right, I'll wait." Melina rode around to a small shopping center nearby and parked her SUV there. Once she finished, she called a taxi and gave the driver the address Kingsley had sent her. After paying the fare, she stepped out and hurried toward his car. The moment she climbed inside, Kingsley reached for her hand and gently pulled her closer. Leaning near her ear, he whispered, "You went through a lot just to get here." His gentle tone made her heart beat even faster. Melina lowered her eyes, unable to hide her embarrassment. Kingsley reached over and brushed a few beads of sweat from her forehead. "Let's go somewhere." "But what if someone sees us?" "Once we're outside the city, no one will recognize us." Kingsley intertwined his fingers with hers. For the first time, Melina didn't pull away. She simply allowed his hand to hold hers. There was something about him that drew her in so completely that she found it difficult to think clearly whenever she was around him. Sitting beside him, she let him decide everything. As Kingsley drove, he occasionally glanced at her. Even with the concern visible in her eyes, she looked beautiful. Her dark eyes seemed to smile whenever she looked at someone. Her skin was smooth, and her gentle smile was enough to leave him captivated. Neither of them spoke much during the drive, yet both could feel the growing tension between them. After they had traveled far enough away from the city, Kingsley finally pulled the car over. Melina looked at him. "What's wrong?" Kingsley didn't answer immediately. Instead, he gazed into her eyes for several long seconds before pulling her into his arms. Melina understood exactly what was happening between them. She wrapped her arms around him as well. Kingsley gently kissed her face. Melina slowly closed her eyes and surrendered to the affection she had longed for over the past year. After a while, Kingsley glanced at his watch. "Let's check into a hotel nearby." Melina quietly nodded. After arriving, Kingsley checked in first while Melina waited outside. When she finally stood in front of the hotel room door, thoughts of Owen and her children suddenly flooded her mind. Guilt washed over her. she hesitated and took a step backward. Just as she was about to leave, the door opened. Kingsley stepped outside and immediately took her hand. Pulling her closer, he said softly, "Please don't go." "Kingsley, come inside. We can talk." Melina nodded and followed him into the room. Once inside, she stood frozen, clutching her purse tightly. Looking at him, she finally spoke. "Maybe we should stop this before it goes any further. Don't leave me. What we're doing is wrong." "I know." Kingsley stepped closer. "But my heart is full of you. Please don't let us lose each other again." As he spoke, he wrapped his arms around her waist and drew her close. Melina wanted to push him away, but Kingsley held her gently and kissed her forehead, her cheek, and then her ear. The feelings she had struggled to suppress for so long suddenly surged back to life. Her heart pounded against her chest. Her breathing grew uneven. Her fingers slid into his hair as she held him tightly. The warmth of his body, the tenderness in his touch, and the longing she had carried for so long finally overwhelmed her resistance. In that moment, both of them stopped thinking about the families waiting for them at home. All they could think about was satisfying the desires they had been denying for far too long. As if she had finally found relief after enduring a long season of drought, Melina lay quietly beside Kingsley, enjoying the comfort of being held in someone's arms again. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to forget everything outside that room. Then reality slowly returned. The warmth she had been feeling suddenly gave way to a heavy sense of guilt. The realization of what she had done struck her all at once. She had betrayed her husband. She had betrayed her family. Tears began sliding down her cheeks. Seeing her cry, Kingsley immediately reached over and gently wiped away her tears. "Please don't cry. You're making me worry." Melina lowered her eyes. "We've become terrible people, haven't we?" "Don't say that. I'm afraid someone will find out." Kingsley held her hand. "No one will know. This stays between you and me." His calm reassurance gradually eased some of her fear. If she stayed silent and he stayed silent, then nobody would ever know about what had happened between them. As they talked, they also came to an unspoken understanding. No matter what happened, their families would remain important. Neither of them intended to walk away from their responsibilities. After a long silence, Kingsley began telling her more about his life. He explained that he was married and had 2 sons. His older son was 26 years old and working for a consumer products company. His younger son was 21 and studying overseas. His wife ran her own business and traveled frequently, which meant she was rarely home. Over the years, their marriage had gradually become distant and routine. Meeting Melina again had awakened emotions he thought had disappeared long ago. He admitted that seeing her had brought back memories and feelings he had never completely forgotten. Listening to him speak so honestly, Melina found herself sympathizing with him. More than anyone, she understood what it felt like to long for affection and emotional connection that seemed impossible to find within a marriage. Slowly, she turned toward him and rested her head against his shoulder. Kingsley wrapped an arm around her and whispered softly into her ear, "I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss you too. I'll come see you whenever I can." After a moment, Melina quietly asked, "Should we keep seeing each other?" Kingsley looked at her. "Please don't ask me that." "Why?" "Because I don't want to think about being apart from you." He gently squeezed her hand. "Just let me figure things out. Don't worry about the future right now." Melina said nothing. Deep down, she knew that what had begun between them was no longer a simple friendship. They had stepped into a secret relationship, one that could destroy both families if it were ever exposed. The thought alone made her uneasy. Even so, she couldn't bring herself to walk away. Melina still loved Owen. The thought of leaving him had never crossed her mind, and if she ever had to choose, she knew she would stay by his side for the rest of her life. But at the same time, she felt that she needed Kingsley too. She longed for his affection, his attention, and the comfort she found whenever she was with him. She needed someone who could fill the emptiness that had been growing inside her for so long. The two of them remained lying side by side, making the most of the little time they had together. Eventually, Kingsley took Melina out for a meal. As the afternoon came to an end and it was time to say goodbye, he reached into his wallet and handed her a bank card. Melina looked at him in surprise. "What's this?" "I'm worried about you." "Kingsley, I know how hard you've been working. Let me help." Melina immediately shook her head. "I can take care of myself. Please don't refuse me." His voice was gentle but firm. Let me do this for you. You really don't have to. I want to. If you keep turning me down, I'll only worry more. Melina smiled faintly. What are you worried about? Kingsley looked at her for a long moment. I'm afraid you won't need me anymore. I'm afraid of losing you. His answer made her laugh softly despite herself. In the end, she accepted the card. During the drive back, Kingsley held her hand for as long as he could, reluctant to let go. Melina felt the same way. The guilt that had weighed on her earlier seemed weaker now, gradually replaced by emotions she had not expected to feel. Something warm and exciting had begun taking root inside her heart. After saying goodbye, Melina waited until Kingsley's car disappeared from sight before returning to the shopping center to pick up her vehicle. To avoid raising suspicion from Owen and Barbara, she went into a fabric store and randomly bought several rolls of fabric before heading home. When she arrived, she saw Barbara busy cleaning the house. Melina quickly smiled and said, "Mom, leave that for me. You've already done enough." Barbara waved her hand dismissively. "You just got back from a long trip. Go get changed and rest. I'll finish this." No matter how many years passed, Barbara remained the same caring and kind mother-in-law she had always been. She constantly looked after Melina and did everything she could to support the family. The sight of her only made Melina feel more conflicted inside. She walked into the kitchen and began preparing dinner. A little later, she stepped into Owen's room and found him lying on the bed looking at his phone. "I'm home." Owen glanced at her. "You're back?" "Yeah. I'll start dinner now." Standing in front of him, Melina couldn't help feeling a mixture of guilt and embarrassment. Throughout dinner, she avoided looking directly at him. Owen noticed that she seemed different somehow, but he didn't think much of it. The pain in his legs suddenly flared up again, causing him to wince and set down his fork. "What's wrong?" Melina asked. "My legs are hurting again." "Why all of a sudden?" "Probably the weather." She looked at him with concern. "Try to eat a little more first." "I don't want any more." "You barely ate anything." Owen frowned. "I said I don't want any more. Why do you keep talking?" Melina immediately fell silent. She had grown accustomed to his temper long ago. Without saying another word, she quietly cleared the table and put everything away. That night, lying alone in bed, she found herself replaying the afternoon with Kingsley. A satisfied smile slowly appeared on her lips. From that day forward, the two of them continued secretly calling and texting each other whenever they had the chance. Eventually, the distance became too difficult for Kingsley to bear. Whenever his wife traveled for work, he would book a flight and come to Houston as quickly as possible just to see Melina. She, in turn, continued using the excuse of buying fabric and supplies for her alteration shop whenever she wanted to meet him. The moment they stepped into a hotel room and locked the door behind them, they would rush into each other's arms, desperate to make up for the time they had spent apart. At this stage of life, Melina still felt all the desires and longings of a woman in her prime. Kingsley gave her the affection, attention, and physical intimacy that Owen could no longer provide. In the beginning, she had been consumed by guilt every time she returned home. But as time passed and their relationship continued, that guilt gradually faded. Whenever she looked at Owen, confined to his wheelchair and trapped inside his bitterness, she often felt frustrated and emotionally distant. Meanwhile, being with Kingsley made her feel alive again. His strong embrace, his confidence, and the way he looked at her filled her with happiness. Before long, she found herself pushing thoughts of her husband aside whenever she was with him. Kingsley also began giving her more and more money. The financial help eased many of her burdens and allowed her to spend without constantly worrying about every expense. As their relationship continued, Melina seemed to grow more beautiful with each passing month. Her face looked brighter, her smile came more easily, and there was a glow about her that people couldn't help noticing. Friends, neighbors, and customers often commented on how youthful she looked. Owen noticed the change too. One day he looked at her and said, "You seem happier lately." Melina immediately felt nervous. "Do I?" "Maybe." Owen gave a faint smile. "Well, that's a good thing." He didn't say anything else and simply turned back toward the wall. Barbara also began noticing how frequently Melina traveled into the city. Still, she pushed the thought aside and continued focusing on caring for her family. Unfortunately, not everyone was so trusting. Some of the neighborhood women had already started whispering behind Melina's back. More than once, they approached Barbara with their gossip. "Your daughter-in-law seems to be getting younger every day. Maybe she's found herself a new romance. You should keep an eye on her." With your son in that condition, who knows what might happen? Every time Barbara heard such comments, she became furious. Mind your own business. Stop spreading lies about my daughter. She never tolerated anyone speaking badly about Melina. Watching her mother-in-law defend her so fiercely made Melina feel ashamed. Barbara had always treated her with kindness, patience, and love. At times, Melina felt she didn't deserve any of it. Around that time, Daisy finally graduated and, after months of searching, landed a job she was excited about. One weekend, she came home carrying bags full of gifts for everyone. Owen, who usually spent his days withdrawn and gloomy, brightened the moment he saw his daughter. "Why did you buy so much?" he asked. Daisy laughed and pulled out a piece of exercise equipment. "This one's for you, Dad. You need to stay active and keep exercising." Owen smiled as he examined the gift. "You shouldn't be spending all your money on us. Don't worry, I can afford it." Then she called toward the kitchen. "Mom, come see what I got for you. Give me a second," Melina called back. "I need to turn off the stove." A moment later, she hurried in. Daisy handed her a set of skincare products and several boxes of vitamins. "These are for you, and these are Dad's supplements. You spent too much money." "Mom, I'm working now. It's fine." Even though she said that, Melina couldn't hide how happy she was. Sitting nearby, Owen watched his wife and daughter sorting through the gifts. For the first time in a very long while, he felt genuine happiness. Daisy proudly announced, "You don't have to worry about me anymore. I got a job with a consumer products company. The salary is pretty good too. I bought all of this with my bonus." "Really?" Melina's eyes lit up. "That's wonderful!" She pulled Daisy into a hug. Daisy hugged both her parents and said softly, "You and Dad have sacrificed so much for us." Owen patted his daughter's shoulder, deeply moved. That evening, the family dinner felt warmer and happier than it had in a very long time. That weekend, Blaine came home from college. Once again, the family was gathered together, laughing and enjoying each other's company the way they used to. After dinner, Daisy stayed behind to help her mother wash the dishes. The two of them chatted while standing side by side at the sink. Then a phone suddenly rang. Melina jumped slightly. She quickly set the bowl she was holding back into the water and hurriedly rinsed her hands before walking toward the living room. But Blaine had already grabbed the phone first. "Mom, stay there. I'll bring it to you." Melina's heart nearly stopped. "Give it to me. Let me see." Blaine handed her the phone. The moment she looked at the screen, panic flashed across her face. "Go ahead and answer it, Mom. It's just a spam call." Without hesitation, she ended the call. Blaine casually shrugged. "Then why don't you just block it? It's fine. I can take your phone upstairs if you want." "No, it's okay. You go ahead." Once her son disappeared upstairs, Melina finally let out a long breath of relief. She returned to the kitchen and resumed washing dishes with Daisy. However, Daisy had noticed her mother's strange reaction. She had always been observant. Lately, she had already felt that something about her mother seemed different. Melina never used to care much about her phone. She often left it lying around the house, and everyone would have to search for it whenever she misplaced it. Now she kept it with her all the time and frequently switched it to silent mode. The change hadn't gone unnoticed. When Melina stepped back beside her, Daisy casually asked, "Who was calling?" "Nobody important, just one of those annoying sales calls." "Oh, why don't you go upstairs and cut some fruit for your brother and your dad? I'll finish up here." Daisy smiled. "I'd rather stay and help you. There's not much left. Then let's finish together." Melina smiled warmly at her daughter. Daisy was thoughtful, kind, and always considerate of her family. She had always been a source of pride for both her parents. Because Daisy was home for the weekend, Melina moved back into the master bedroom and slept beside Owen again. That night, after the lights were turned off, the room became quiet. Melina lay facing away from him while Owen remained awake. He stared into the darkness for a long time before slowly moving closer. Gently, he wrapped an arm around his wife's waist. Melina froze for a moment. She hadn't expected him to do that. "Are you asleep?" Owen asked softly. "No, I thought you were." Melina didn't say anything else. Owen lowered his eyes. "It's been a long time since we slept together like this." "Yeah." The silence that followed felt awkward and unfamiliar. Owen hesitated before speaking again. "Melina, what is it? Are you still upset with me?" "No, really." "Why would I be?" Owen forced a faint smile. "Because I've treated you badly for a long time now." Melina looked toward the dark window. It's fine. No, it's not. His voice sounded heavy. I know I've become difficult to live with. Sometimes even I can't stand myself. Melina remained quiet. Owen continued speaking as if the words had been trapped inside him for too long. Ever since the accident, I haven't been able to control myself. Every day I wake up and see what's left of me, and I get angry. I get angry at myself, at my life, at everything. He paused before adding quietly, and then I take it out on you. Melina felt her chest tighten slightly. For a brief moment, she remembered the man Owen used to be. The man who had always put his family first. The man who had loved her wholeheartedly. I'm sorry, Owen whispered. Melina was surprised. It had been a very long time since she had heard him apologize for anything. You don't have to say that. I do. Owen swallowed hard. I know you've suffered a lot because of me. His arm tightened around her waist. Thank you for staying. The words made Melina feel even more uncomfortable. Guilt slowly crept into her heart. If Owen knew what she had been doing behind his back, would he still be thanking her like this? She didn't dare think about it. Owen rested his forehead lightly against her shoulder. Sometimes I'm scared. Scared of what? Scared that one day you'll get tired of me and leave. Melina immediately looked away. She couldn't answer him. The room fell silent once more. After a while, she gently removed his hand from her waist. It's late. We should sleep. Owen's eyes dimmed slightly, though Melina couldn't see it in the darkness. Okay. He slowly moved back to his side of the bed. Neither of them spoke another word. A few minutes later, Melina closed her eyes and drifted off to sleep. Owen remained awake, staring into the darkness. He listened to the sound of his wife's breathing and felt an emptiness spreading inside his chest. He closed his eyes and pretended to be asleep, but in reality, countless emotions continued to churn within him. Seeing Owen lying motionless beside her, Melina quietly reached for her phone. She carefully lowered the screen brightness and slipped beneath the blanket before opening her messages. Almost immediately, she saw several texts from Kingsley. A smile appeared on her lips. Are you asleep yet? One message read. Another followed a few minutes later. I miss you. Melina stared at the words for a long moment before replying. My daughter is home this weekend. I can't talk much. Kingsley responded almost instantly. Then just tell me you're okay. Melina's fingers hovered over the screen. I'm okay. Good. I've been thinking about you all day. Her heart softened. Even after all this time, Kingsley still made her feel wanted. He still made her feel like she mattered. Glancing toward Owen, she quickly locked the screen and listened. His breathing sounded steady. Only then did she unlock the phone again. You should get some sleep, she typed. Only if you promise to dream about me. Melina couldn't help smiling. You're impossible, and yet you're still texting me. She shook her head and laughed silently. For several minutes, the two of them continued exchanging messages beneath the covers. Every vibration from the phone made her nervous. She was terrified Owen might wake up and discover everything. More than once, she thought about ending the relationship. Maybe it would be easier if she stopped now. Maybe she could still fix her marriage before it was too late. But every time she imagined cutting Kingsley out of her life, a deep sense of loss settled over her. She wasn't ready to let him go. Eventually, Kingsley sent one last message. Good night, beautiful. Melina stared at the words. A warmth spread through her chest. No one had called her that in a very long time. She typed back, good night. Then she put the phone aside and closed her eyes. Even as she drifted toward sleep, thoughts of Kingsley remained in her mind. The 2-day weekend quickly came to an end. On Sunday afternoon, Blaine packed his things and prepared to return to college. Melina carefully packed containers of food and snacks into his bag while Barbara stood beside them, reminding him to eat properly and take care of himself. Owen sat quietly in his wheelchair watching his son get ready to leave. Dad, Mom, I'll come home again next month. Just focus on studying, Owen said. Don't worry about us. I know. Blaine walked over and hugged his father before turning to hug his mother. Take care of yourself too, Mom. Melina smiled and patted his shoulder. You worry too much. Go study hard. After Blaine left, the house once again became quiet. A few days later, Daisy officially started her new job. She was nervous on her first day, arriving early and carefully introducing herself to everyone. Fortunately, her coworkers were friendly and welcoming. They patiently showed her around and helped her learn the company's procedures. The job turned out to be much better than she had expected. Every evening after work, Daisy would call home to check on her parents. One night, while Melina was folding laundry and Owen was sitting nearby watching television, Daisy called again. "Dad, Mom, how are you doing? We're fine," Melina replied. "How's work?" "Pretty good. Everyone's been nice to me," Owen smiled. "That's good to hear." Daisy sounded excited. "The company is even better than I imagined. The salary and benefits are great, too." "Just make sure you work hard," Owen reminded her. "I will," Daisy laughed. "Once I get my first paycheck, I'm buying gifts for everyone." "Don't waste your money," Melina said immediately. "Save it for yourself." "No way. You and Dad have spent your whole lives taking care of me. It's my turn now." Hearing that made both of her parents smile. Before hanging up, Daisy added, "Oh, and once I get paid, I'm sending money home too." "There's no need for that," Owen said. "You just started working." "Too late. I've already decided." Daisy laughed again. "You'll see. I'm transferring money into Mom's account." One evening, after hanging up with her parents, Daisy got ready for another day at work. The next morning, the office seemed unusually lively. Employees gathered in small groups, whispering excitedly about the department's new manager. "Have you heard?" one woman asked. "He starts today." "The new manager?" "Yeah. I heard he's young, handsome, and still single." Several women immediately became interested. "Really? How old is he?" 26, I think." "No way." "That's what I heard." Daisy sat quietly at her desk listening to the conversation. She smiled but didn't pay much attention. To her, managers were managers. Their appearance had nothing to do with her work. A few minutes later, the office suddenly grew quiet. People began looking toward the entrance. Daisy glanced up out of curiosity. The elevator doors opened and a tall young man stepped out. He wore a tailored dark suit and carried himself with calm confidence. His features were sharp and masculine, and his presence immediately drew attention from everyone around him. Several female employees exchanged excited looks. "That's him. Wow. He's even better looking than I expected." Daisy found herself staring for a moment longer than she intended. The young man walked calmly through the office before stopping near the conference room. Shortly afterward, the department director appeared and gathered everyone together. "I'd like everyone to meet our new department manager." The director smiled and gestured toward the young man. "This is Neo." Neo nodded politely. "It's nice to meet everyone. I look forward to working with you." His voice was steady and warm. Several women immediately seemed captivated. Even Daisy couldn't deny that he was attractive. More importantly, he carried himself with a confidence that made people naturally pay attention to him. As the introductions continued, Neo's eyes briefly moved across the room before stopping on Daisy. Their eyes met for a second. Daisy quickly looked away and lowered her head, pretending to focus on the documents in front of her. She felt slightly embarrassed for no reason. Throughout the rest of the morning, she caught herself noticing him whenever he walked past. And surprisingly, Neo seemed to notice her as well. By the end of the day, Daisy realized she had spent far more time thinking about the new manager than she should have. As the days passed, Daisy and Neo interacted more frequently at work. Because she was still new, she occasionally made mistakes or encountered tasks she didn't fully understand. Whenever that happened, Neo would patiently explain things to her instead of criticizing her. "You don't need to rush," he told her one afternoon while reviewing a report she had prepared. "Your work is good. You just need a little more confidence." Daisy smiled. "Thank you. You're welcome." Over time, she began feeling more comfortable around him. The nervousness she had felt during their first meeting gradually faded. Neo, meanwhile, found himself looking for excuses to stop by her desk. Sometimes he asked about a project. Sometimes he simply wanted to see how her day was going. Their coworkers quickly noticed the growing connection between them. "I think the manager likes you," one of Daisy's colleagues whispered during lunch. Daisy nearly choked on her drink. "What are you talking about? Don't pretend you haven't noticed. There's nothing going on," her coworker laughed. "Sure there isn't." Daisy tried to ignore the teasing, but deep down she couldn't deny that she enjoyed Neo's attention. He was kind, thoughtful, and unlike anyone she had met before. A few weeks later, Neo finally gathered the courage to ask her out. After work, he walked beside her to the parking lot. "Daisy, yeah? Would you like to have dinner with me sometime?" Daisy stared at him in surprise. Neo laughed nervously. "You don't have to answer right away. Daisy lowered her eyes, trying to hide her smile. I'd like that. Neo's face immediately brightened. Their first date felt natural and easy. They talked for hours about work, family, and their future goals. The more time they spent together, the more they realized how much they enjoyed each other's company. Before long, one date became several. Several became many more. Eventually, Neo looked at her seriously one evening and said, "Daisy, I like you." Daisy's heart skipped a beat. She had been expecting those words, yet hearing them still made her nervous. "I like you too." Neo smiled and gently took her hand. From that day forward, they officially became a couple. Their relationship quickly grew deeper. The warmth, sincerity, and care Neo showed her made Daisy feel cherished. Little by little, she opened her heart completely and accepted the love he offered. Neo was happier than he had been in years. After making his relationship with Daisy official, he wanted everyone important in his life to know about her. One evening, while the two of them were having dinner together, he looked at her and said, "Daisy, there's something I want to ask you." "What is it?" "I'd like you to meet my family." Daisy nearly dropped her fork. "Already?" Neo laughed. "Why do you look so nervous?" "Because we've only been dating for a short time." "I know, but I'm serious about you." Daisy lowered her eyes, feeling her cheeks warm. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure about anything." Hearing those words made her heart flutter. After a brief moment of hesitation, she nodded. "Okay." Neo reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Then I'll arrange it soon." A few days later, Neo called his father. "Dad, I have someone I'd like you to meet." Kingsley smiled on the other end of the phone. "A girlfriend?" "Yeah." "Well, that's good news." "She's amazing," Kingsley chuckled. "You sound completely smitten." "Maybe I am." Kingsley laughed again. "Then bring her home sometime. I'd love to meet her." After ending the call, Neo immediately sent Daisy a message. "My dad wants to meet you." Daisy stared at the screen for several seconds before replying. "Now I'm really nervous." "Don't be. Easy for you to say. Trust me. He's going to love you." Over the following weeks, the two of them continued growing closer. Every time Daisy came home, she told her family stories about Neo. Melina listened quietly while preparing dinner. Owen sat nearby, asking occasional questions. Even Barbara seemed interested. "What does he do?" Barbara asked one evening. "He's the department manager at my company." "And how old is he?" 26. Barbara smiled. "That's a good age." Daisy couldn't stop smiling whenever she talked about him. The happiness on her face was impossible to miss. Watching their daughter so excited made both Melina and Owen feel relieved. After everything their family had endured over the past few years, seeing Daisy happy brought them genuine joy. One evening after dinner, Daisy finally admitted, "I think I really love him." Melina smiled warmly. "Then I hope he treats you well." "He does," Owen nodded. "That's what matters most." Hearing their approval made Daisy even happier. As for Melina and Owen, they were simply grateful that their daughter had found someone who seemed to care about her so much. Knowing that Daisy had found someone she truly loved, Melina couldn't help thinking about her own situation. Every time she looked at her daughter, she felt an even stronger sense of guilt. Daisy was building a future with someone she loved, while Melina was hiding a secret that could destroy everything if it ever came to light. More than once, she considered ending things with Kingsley. The relationship had gone much further than she ever intended. What had started as comfort during a difficult period of her life had become something neither of them could easily walk away from. One afternoon, while speaking on the phone with Kingsley, Melina finally gathered the courage to say what had been weighing on her heart. "Kingsley." "Yeah? I think we should stop seeing each other." Silence filled the line. Several seconds passed before he finally spoke. "Why?" Melina closed her eyes. "Because this can't continue forever." "Melina, please listen to me." Her voice trembled slightly. "Our children are grown now. They have their own futures ahead of them. We can't keep risking everything." Kingsley leaned back in his chair and rubbed his forehead. Deep down, he had known this conversation would come eventually. "Is this what you really want?" "No," Melina swallowed hard. "But I think it's what we need to do." The honesty in her answer hurt both of them. Kingsley remained quiet for a long moment. "Then let me see you one last time." Melina felt her chest tighten. "Kingsley, just once. Let me say goodbye properly." Tears filled her eyes. After everything they had shared, she couldn't bring herself to refuse. Okay. A few days later, they met again. Neither of them spoke much at first. They sat across from each other in a quiet cafe, both knowing what this meeting meant. Eventually, Kingsley reached across the table and took her hand. I never expected to see you again after all these years. Melina smiled sadly. Neither did I. Meeting you changed my life. Kingsley. It's true. He squeezed her hand gently. No matter what happens, I'll always be grateful for the time we had together. Melina lowered her eyes. Tears threatened to spill over, but she fought them back. When it was finally time to leave, neither of them wanted to stand up. The goodbye they had been avoiding all afternoon was now unavoidable. Eventually, they walked out together. Neither of them knew whether they would ever see each other again. If things had ended there, perhaps their secret relationship would have quietly disappeared into the past without anyone ever discovering the truth. Kingsley insisted on driving Melina to the airport before returning to Atlanta. Since both believed this would be the last time they would ever see each other, neither wanted to say goodbye. After arriving at the terminal, they remained near the entrance talking quietly. Neither seemed willing to walk away first. The thought of ending things left a heaviness in both of their hearts. Kingsley tried to reassure her that everything would eventually be all right, but neither of them truly believed it. At the same time, inside a nearby airport coffee shop, Neo and Daisy were enjoying a rare day together. Their relationship had become stronger than ever over the past few months. They talked about work, laughed about old memories, and discussed plans for the future. For the first time in a long while, both felt optimistic about where life was taking them. While Daisy was speaking, Neo's attention suddenly drifted toward the terminal entrance. Something in the distance caught his eye. At first, he barely paid attention, but then he noticed a familiar profile. His expression immediately changed. The smile disappeared from his face. Daisy stopped talking when she noticed the shift in his demeanor. Before she could ask what was wrong, Neo was already staring toward the entrance. Following his gaze, Daisy turned around as well. The moment both of them recognized who they were looking at, time seemed to stop. Near the terminal entrance, Kingsley and Melina were standing much closer than two ordinary friends should have been. Neither realized they were being watched. The emotional goodbye they had been trying to avoid was unfolding right in front of Neo and Daisy. The sight left both of them speechless. Questions raced through their minds faster than they could process them. Within seconds, disbelief turned into panic. Neo immediately pushed away from the table and headed toward the terminal entrance. Daisy hurried after him. What followed happened so quickly that nobody had time to think. One moment, Kingsley and Melina were saying goodbye. The next moment, they found themselves face to face with Neo and Daisy. The expressions on all four faces told the story before a single explanation could be given. Then Melina noticed Daisy standing beside Neo. Daisy noticed the way Melina looked at Kingsley. Kingsley noticed the panic in Neo's eyes, and suddenly the horrifying truth connected itself. The realization hit all four of them at almost the exact same moment. Nobody knew what to say. Nobody knew how to explain what had happened. They simply stood frozen in the middle of the terminal as everything they had been trying to protect began collapsing around them. That night, neither Kingsley nor Melina could sleep. Hundreds of miles apart, they sat alone in separate rooms, trapped inside the consequences of their choices. In Atlanta, Kingsley sat alone in the dark living room after Neo had gone upstairs. He stared at the family photograph resting on the bookshelf. For years, he had always considered himself a good husband and a good father. Yet now, he couldn't even bring himself to look his own son in the eye. The disappointment he had seen on Neo's face at the airport haunted him. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't erase the image from his mind. He never intended for any of this to happen. What had started as a friendship had slowly become something neither he nor Melina had been able to control. Now everything was falling apart. Kingsley rubbed his face and let out a long breath. What would happen if his wife found out the truth? How could he possibly explain any of this? How could he repair the damage he had already caused? Meanwhile, in Houston, Melina sat alone in Daisy's old bedroom. The house was quiet. For the first time in years, she felt completely lost. She kept replaying the scene at the airport over and over again. The look in Daisy's eyes, the heartbreak in her daughter's voice, the disbelief on Neo's face. Every memory felt like a knife twisting deeper into her chest. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. She had never imagined that her relationship with Kingsley would end up hurting the people she loved most. What frightened her most wasn't losing Kingsley. It was losing her family. If Owen learned the full truth, what would happen? If Barbara found out everything, would she ever forgive her? Would Daisy ever be able to look at her the same way again? Melina wrapped her arms around herself and cried quietly. For the first time since meeting Kingsley, she truly understood how much she stood to lose. In different cities, both Kingsley and Melina spent the night alone with the same fear. The truth had finally caught up with them, and neither of them knew what would happen next. Neo and his father returned home. His mother was still away on a business trip and knew nothing about what had happened. The first thing Neo did was make Kingsley promise that they would keep everything from her. He didn't want his mother to be hurt by the truth. As for his relationship with Daisy, he knew there was no future left for them. How could they possibly continue after discovering that their parents had been involved with each other? Even seeing each other again felt impossible. A short while later, Neo's phone lit up with a new message. It was from Daisy. "I'm sorry. Let's break up." Neo stared at the screen. The pain in his chest tightened. He didn't reply. There was nothing he could say. The next day, he flew back and returned to work. The moment he arrived at the office, his eyes instinctively searched for Daisy. She wasn't there. More than once, he reached for his phone, wanting to call her, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. He knew she wasn't at fault. He knew she was suffering just as much as he was. Yet the situation between them had become impossible. He loved her, but a wall now stood between them, one neither of them could cross. The future they had dreamed about together had vanished overnight. The pain of losing Daisy, combined with how much he missed her, slowly consumed him. At work, he buried himself in tasks and barely spoke to anyone. After work, he numbed himself with alcohol. Day after day, he pushed himself deeper into misery. Before long, his coworkers began noticing that something was wrong. One afternoon, a colleague called Daisy. "Daisy, do you know what's going on with Neo?" Daisy closed her eyes. "No, he's completely different lately. He barely talks to anyone." Daisy remained silent. "Did something happen between you two?" "No. Then why does he look like he's falling apart?" Daisy couldn't answer. She simply listened before quietly ending the call. There was no way she could explain the truth. After everything that had happened, she had taken a 2-week leave from work and stayed home. Most days, she shut herself away in her room. She still spoke to her father and grandparents, but she could barely bring herself to look at her mother. Whenever Melina tried to start a conversation, Daisy found an excuse to walk away. Watching her daughter's coldness only made Melina's guilt worse. Every day felt heavier than the last. The atmosphere inside the house became suffocating. Melina moved through the rooms like a shadow. No one asked how she was feeling. No one seemed interested in hearing her side of the story. The guilt never stopped eating away at her. It followed her everywhere. Each day, darker thoughts began taking root in her mind. They lingered constantly, refusing to leave. More and more, she found herself thinking about death. Maybe disappearing would be the best thing for everyone. Maybe only death could make up for the pain she had caused her husband and children. Eventually, those thoughts stopped being thoughts and became a decision. Melina decided she would end her life. After making her decision, Melina quietly prepared everything. She bought a bottle of sleeping pills and hid it where no one would find it. On the day she chose to end her life, she woke up early, took a long shower, and carefully dressed herself in clean clothes. She spent the entire day cooking. Dish after dish filled the table. She made everyone's favorites, just as she had done for countless family meals over the years. Throughout the day, she kept giving small reminders and instructions to Owen about things around the house. The behavior seemed strange enough that Owen began paying closer attention to her. Something felt off, but he couldn't figure out what it was. As evening approached, Melina disappeared into the bathroom. Minutes passed. Then more minutes passed. She still hadn't come out. Owen's uneasiness grew stronger. Eventually, he called for Daisy and his parents. "Go check on your mother." Daisy knocked on the door. There was no answer. Panic spread through the family. After forcing the door open, they found Melina unconscious on the floor. An empty bottle of sleeping pills lay nearby, along with pills scattered across the tiles. Daisy screamed. Barbara burst into tears. Owen felt his entire body go cold. An ambulance was called immediately, and Melina was rushed to the hospital. The family waited outside the emergency room in agony. Daisy clung to her father and grandmother, crying uncontrollably. Owen tried to comfort his daughter, but his own hands were shaking. He was terrified. For all the anger, disappointment, and pain he had felt recently, none of it compared to the fear of losing his wife forever. An hour later, the doctor finally emerged from the treatment room. Everyone rushed forward. "Doctor, how is she?" The doctor removed his mask. "We were able to pump her stomach in time. She's out of danger now." The entire family broke down in tears of relief. Melina was transferred to the intensive care unit for observation. That night, Owen and Daisy stayed beside her bed. Watching Melina lying there pale and frail with an oxygen tube in her nose filled Daisy with overwhelming guilt. She remembered all the years her mother had cared for her, protected her, and sacrificed for the family. If something had happened to her, Daisy knew she would never have forgiven herself. As she sat there quietly, Owen reached over and gently stroked her hair. "Don't be angry with your mother anymore." Daisy lowered her head. "Dad, your mother has suffered too much for this family already." His voice was soft but firm. "Look at me. The only reason I'm still here today is because of her. If she hadn't stayed by my side after the accident, I don't know if I would have survived." Tears filled Daisy's eyes. "I've been horrible, haven't I?" "No," Owen shook his head. "Don't blame yourself. Your mother and I have both made mistakes. We hurt you too." Daisy wiped her eyes. "Dad," Owen smiled sadly. "Nobody gets through life without making mistakes." Unable to hold back any longer, Daisy leaned against her father's shoulder and cried. Between sobs, she whispered, "I'm going to break up with Neo, Dad." Owen wrapped an arm around her trembling shoulders. "I trust you'll make the decision that's best for yourself. But forgetting him hurts so much. I know." He gently rubbed her arm. "I know it does." Father and daughter sat together through the night, comforting each other. The storm that had struck their family had been more devastating than anything they had ever experienced before. The next day, when Melina opened her eyes, she found Owen sitting beside her bed. His gaze was gentle and filled with concern. "Why would you do something so foolish?" he asked softly. "No matter what happens, there's always a way to solve it." Tears welled in Melina's eyes. "I can't face you or the children anymore." Owen reached for her frail hand and held it tightly. "Let's start over. Yesterday, I realized how terrified I was of losing you. I thought you were going to leave us forever." Melina lowered her eyes. "I'm not worthy of you anymore." "I'm not—" "Don't say that," Owen interrupted her. "I'm not worthy of you either." Melina looked at him in confusion. "What do you mean?" Owen took a deep breath. "There's something I've hidden from you for years, and it's something that's haunted me ever since. I think it's time I told you the truth." Melina stared at him in shock. Owen tightened his grip on her hand and slowly began speaking. "Years ago, when I was sent on a month-long work assignment out of town, right after Daisy was born, I made a terrible mistake. I got involved with another woman." Melina's eyes widened. Owen lowered his head. "Afterward, I hated myself for it. I felt guilty every single day. I cut ties with her immediately and begged to return home early." His voice grew heavier. "That's why I spent so many years trying to make you happy. That's why I always spoiled you and treated you well." Melina shook her head. "So all those years—" "No," Owen interrupted gently. "I treated you well because I truly loved you. But I was also trying to ease the guilt I carried inside." He swallowed hard. "When the accident happened and I lost my legs, part of me believed it was punishment. I thought God was making me pay for what I'd done." Melina turned away, unable to speak. After a moment, Owen squeezed her hand again. "Let's give each other another chance." Tears rolled down Melina's cheeks. "I don't deserve that." "Neither do I," Owen smiled sadly. "After my accident, I was so consumed by my own pain and shame that I stopped thinking about what you were going through. I pushed you away. I ignored your feelings. I hurt you too." Melina broke down crying. "I'm worried about Daisy. What if she never forgives me? Give her time." Owen's voice remained calm. "She loves you. Right now she's hurt, but she loves you." Melina wiped her eyes. "If my own daughter rejects me, I don't know how I'll survive it." "She won't," Owen said firmly. "Just give her time." Hearing those words, Melina felt a small sense of hope for the first time in weeks. Despite everything she had done, her husband was still sitting beside her, holding her hand. She silently thanked God for giving her another chance to live. And she promised herself that from now on, she would spend the rest of her life trying to make amends for her mistakes. While Melina and Owen were talking, Daisy walked into the hospital room carrying a container of porridge. She set it down on the bedside table and immediately began preparing a bowl for her mother. "Mom, how are you feeling?" "Better." Melina forced a smile. "Thank you." Daisy handed the bowl to her. "Eat while it's still warm." Owen looked at his daughter and smiled. "Why don't you take me out into the hallway for a little fresh air?" "Okay, Dad." After helping Owen into his wheelchair and taking him into the hallway, Daisy returned to the room. She sat beside her mother's bed and picked up the spoon. "Let me feed you. I can do it myself." "No, just let me." Daisy carefully scooped up a spoonful of porridge and held it toward her mother. As she watched Melina eat, her eyes gradually filled with tears. "You scared me so much yesterday." Melina lowered her head. "I'm sorry." Daisy bit her lip. "When I saw you lying there," her voice cracked. "I was terrified." Tears began running down her cheeks. "I don't even want to imagine what would have happened if we'd lost you." Melina immediately reached over and wiped away her daughter's tears. Her own eyes were already red. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Daisy shook her head. "Don't ever do that again." "I won't." Melina's voice trembled. "I was ashamed of what I'd done. I thought everyone would be better off without me." "Don't say that." Daisy cried harder. "You're my mother." The words hit Melina harder than anything else. She pulled her daughter into an embrace and held her tightly. Both of them cried together. For the first time since the truth had come out, the distance between them finally began to disappear. After Daisy finished feeding her mother, her phone suddenly started ringing. The moment she saw the name on the screen, her heart began racing. It was Neo. She hadn't heard from him in days. For several seconds, she simply stared at the phone. Then she quietly stood up and walked into the hallway before answering. "Hello, Daisy!" The moment she heard his voice, tears threatened to return. "How are you?" Neo asked softly. "I'm okay." "No, you're not." Daisy closed her eyes. "How are you?" "Not good." He laughed bitterly. "I miss you." Daisy felt her chest tighten. "Neo, I can't stop thinking about you." She leaned against the wall. "We can't keep doing this." "I know." His voice sounded exhausted. "But I can't just pretend you don't exist." After a moment of silence, Neo spoke again. "I'm at the airport." Daisy frowned. "The airport?" "Yeah, why?" "Because I came to see you." Daisy froze. "What?" "I couldn't accept things ending like this." Her heart pounded. "Neo, please come see me." She closed her eyes tightly. Every part of her knew she shouldn't go. Yet she also knew she wouldn't be able to refuse. "Stay there." Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "I'll come." After hanging up, Daisy returned to the room, quickly told her parents she needed to go out for a little while, then rushed downstairs and called a taxi. Less than an hour later, she found Neo waiting inside a quiet cafe near the airport. Soft music played in the background while dim lights cast long shadows across the room. The moment she saw him, her heart ached. He looked thinner. His hair was longer and messy. Dark circles sat beneath his eyes. He looked exhausted. Neo stared at her the same way. Daisy wasn't doing any better. She had lost weight and looked pale. "You need to take care of yourself," Daisy said softly. Tears already shimmered in her eyes. "Seeing you like this hurts." Neo smiled sadly. "You don't look much better." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Neo finally broke the silence. "I miss you." Daisy lowered her eyes. "I miss you too. Every day." His voice shook. "I've tried drinking. I've tried working. I've tried keeping busy. Nothing works." Daisy felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "Please stop. I can't." Neo looked at her helplessly. "I love you." Daisy closed her eyes. The words only made everything harder. "We have to end this." "Why?" Neo asked, even though he already knew the answer. "Because we don't have another choice." Silence filled the table. Finally, Neo whispered, "Then let's run away." Daisy looked up in shock. "What?" "Let's leave. Start over somewhere else." Tears rolled down her face. "And what about our families?" Neo lowered his head. He already knew there was no answer to that question. Everything's ruined anyway. Daisy shook her head. No. Her voice trembled. We can't do that. The truth was cruel, but it remained the truth. Their relationship could never survive what had happened between their parents. Neo buried his face in his hands. Daisy immediately stood up and moved beside him. She wrapped her arms around his shoulders and gently pulled him against her. Please don't do this. Her own tears were falling freely now. My heart hurts too. Neo held her tightly. I don't want to lose you. Daisy closed her eyes. We already have. After several minutes, she finally stepped away. She called a taxi and prepared to leave. Before getting into the car, she turned around one last time. Forget me, Neo. He stood frozen in the rain outside the cafe. Daisy climbed into the taxi and left before she lost the strength to walk away. Neo remained there long after her car disappeared. The love they had shared had been beautiful. But sometimes love alone wasn't enough. From that day forward, they became strangers. After 2 weeks, Daisy returned to work. The office felt different without Neo. Shortly after their breakup, he had requested a transfer and moved to the company's Atlanta branch. Although Daisy had expected it, the news still left an empty feeling inside her. Every day she passed his old office and remembered the moments they had shared together. It hurt, but she forced herself to move forward. Meanwhile, life at home slowly began returning to normal. Melina was discharged from the hospital and came home. Since surviving her suicide attempt, she seemed quieter and more thoughtful. She spent more time with her family and worked hard to rebuild the trust she had broken. Owen also changed. After nearly losing his wife, he finally stopped drowning in bitterness and self-pity. For the first time since his accident, he genuinely wanted to fight for his future again. A few months later, the family received unexpected good news. Through a charitable program and financial support from several organizations, Owen was approved for a pair of prosthetic legs. The day he received them, everyone was overwhelmed with emotion. Melina stood beside him with tears in her eyes while Daisy and Blaine watched nervously. The rehabilitation process was difficult. Owen fell many times. More than once, frustration nearly made him quit. But this time he refused to give up. Melina remained by his side through every step. Whenever he lost confidence, she encouraged him to keep trying. Week after week, he slowly improved. Then one day, with the therapist standing nearby, Owen managed to take several steps on his own. The entire family burst into tears. Even Owen couldn't hold back his emotions. After years of believing he would spend the rest of his life trapped in a wheelchair, he was finally standing again. The moment felt like a miracle. As Owen became stronger, the atmosphere inside the family also improved. The conversations that had disappeared for so long slowly returned. Melina and Owen spent more time together. They weren't the same couple they had been years ago, but they were learning how to rebuild what had been broken. Outside the home, however, not everyone was willing to let the past go. Some neighbors still whispered about Melina's affair whenever they thought the family wasn't listening. Every time Barbara heard someone criticizing her daughter-in-law, she immediately defended her. "None of you know what my family has been through," she would say firmly. "Stop judging people when you don't understand their lives." Her loyalty never wavered. The more Melina saw her mother-in-law protecting her, the more ashamed she felt. Despite all her mistakes, this family had chosen to forgive her. That realization only strengthened her determination to become a better person. Little by little, peace returned to the household. For the first time in a long while, laughter could once again be heard inside the home. Life wasn't perfect, but they were healing together. The family that had nearly fallen apart was finally finding its way back to one another. As time continued to move forward, Blaine also graduated from college. Not long afterward, he found a stable job with a good company. For the first time in years, the financial pressure on the family finally began to ease. Owen was gradually regaining his confidence. Daisy was advancing in her career, and Blaine was now able to support himself. Seeing her children grow into responsible adults filled Melina with pride. As for Daisy, although the pain of losing Neo never completely disappeared, she slowly learned how to live with it. Instead of dwelling on the past, she poured all her energy into work. Her dedication and ability quickly earned the trust of her supervisors. Within a few years, she had become one of the company's most promising employees. Her coworkers respected her, and management frequently entrusted her with important projects. The experience of losing Neo had changed her. She became more mature, more independent, and more focused on building her future. One afternoon, Daisy was called into her director's office. "Have a seat." Daisy smiled politely and sat down. The director slid a folder across the desk. "We have an opportunity we'd like to offer you." Daisy looked surprised. "What kind of opportunity?" "The company is launching a major project in Singapore." Daisy blinked. "Singapore?" "Yes." The director nodded. "We need someone capable to help lead the project, and your name was at the top of our list." Daisy stared at the folder for several seconds. This was the kind of opportunity many people waited years to receive. "You don't have to answer immediately," the director said. "Take some time to think about it." That evening, Daisy returned home and shared the news with her family. Everyone listened attentively. "Singapore?" Melina repeated. "That's incredible." Owen smiled proudly. "You worked hard for this." Daisy looked uncertain. "It's a great opportunity, but I'd have to live there for quite a while." "Then go," Owen said without hesitation. "You shouldn't turn down something this important." Barbara nodded in agreement. "Your future comes first." Blaine laughed. "We're all jealous." Daisy couldn't help smiling. Looking around at her family, she felt grateful. No one tried to hold her back. Instead, they encouraged her to pursue her dreams. By the end of the evening, she had made her decision. She would accept the assignment and move to Singapore. The entire family supported her choice wholeheartedly. The day before Daisy was scheduled to leave for Singapore, several coworkers organized a small farewell gathering for her. Everyone spent the evening eating, laughing, and sharing stories from the years they had worked together. Daisy was genuinely touched by the effort they had made. As the dinner was coming to an end, one of her colleagues suddenly sat down beside her and lowered her voice. "Have you heard?" Daisy looked up. "Heard what? About Neo?" For a moment, Daisy's smile froze. She hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in a very long time. "No." Her coworker hesitated before continuing. "He's getting married." Daisy's fingers tightened slightly around her glass. Although she had prepared herself for this possibility countless times, hearing it spoken out loud still sent a sharp pain through her chest. "Really?" "Yeah." The woman pulled out her phone. Someone from the Atlanta office shared photos online. Daisy stared at the screen. There was Neo standing beside a beautiful young woman, both dressed in elegant formal clothes. Their smiles looked happy and genuine. Several wedding photos followed. For a few seconds, Daisy couldn't look away. Memories she had worked so hard to bury suddenly rushed back. She remembered their first meeting, their first date, and the dreams they had once shared together. The pain returned briefly, but it wasn't the overwhelming heartbreak she had felt years ago. Time had softened the wound. "She's pretty," Daisy finally said. Her coworker studied her carefully. "Are you okay?" Daisy smiled. This time, the smile was real. "Yeah," and surprisingly, she meant it. Looking at Neo's wedding photos, she realized she no longer felt anger or resentment. There was only a small sense of sadness for what might have been. More than anything else, she genuinely hoped he was happy. That night, after returning home, Daisy sat alone on the balcony for a while. The city lights stretched out before her as she reflected on everything that had happened over the years. Life had taken her through heartbreak, disappointment, and loss. But it had also taught her resilience. She quietly looked up at the night sky and whispered, "Be happy, Neo." Then she smiled to herself. Tomorrow she would begin a new chapter of her life in Singapore. The future waiting ahead was still uncertain, but she was no longer afraid of it. The past would always remain part of her story, but it would no longer define her future. As she stood and headed back inside, Daisy made a promise to herself. She would open her heart again someday. And when happiness came knocking on her door once more, she would be ready to welcome it. Because of one moment of weakness, Melina betrayed the husband who had shared her life and her bed for so many years. Instead of understanding the emotional wounds Owen was carrying after his accident, she convinced herself that he was pushing her away. But Owen also carried a small part of the responsibility. He wasn't wrong, but he refused to open up to his wife. He gradually shut himself off from the world and withdrew into his own pain. That left Melina feeling lonely and desperate for comfort. Even so, none of that excuses what happened. An affair is wrong, no matter the reason. Her decision nearly destroyed her entire family. Fortunately, her husband and mother-in-law chose to forgive her and give her a chance to start over. Perhaps because she was overwhelmed by guilt, Melina wanted to end her life. But once again, she failed to think about the people she would leave behind. If she had died, what would have happened to her family? She still had a responsibility to live and make up for the pain she caused. She owed that not only to her husband and family, but also to her daughter. By her actions, she helped destroy her daughter's relationship and caused her to lose the man she loved. That was part of the price Melina had to pay for allowing her emotions to overpower the judgment and self-control she needed as a wife and mother. What would you do if you were in Melina's situation? Let Olivia know in the comments below, and we'll see you again in the next meaningful story.